So it looks like a fight between Jake Paul and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is actually being negotiated. It's actually being talked about that they are going back and forth. That Chavez Jr. and Jake Paul and their teams are going back and forth to actually make this fight. Now, before I get more into the video, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe for more boxing and please hit that like button. It helps out the video. It helps out the channel. I'd really appreciate it. So, yeah, it looks like it's looking very likely that this might be the next fight we see for Jake Paul. Now, in my opinion, I think this is not a bad fight. I think it's actually a good fight. A lot of people out there want to see Jake Paul fight a quote-unquote real boxer. Chavez Jr. is a son of a legend. Yes, he may not be as good as his dad, but he has more than 50 professional fights. And him versus Jake Paul will definitely make for a very entertaining fight, in my opinion. FightNews.com wrote an article about what's going on between Jake Paul and Jake Paul. And if you want to see the whole article, go to fightnews.com. But yeah, as you guys can tell by the headline, Chavez Jr. I had conversations with Jake Paul. They made an offer. So they quoted Chavez Jr. here, and I quote. It reads, "Jake Paul and his people contacted me regarding to fight with Paul. I said yes, but then again, Lupe Valencia, who is with Paul now and used to be with me a few years back, said they offered me $1 to $3 million plus pay-per-view. When it's a fight that can sell millions and break records because he is popular and I have a name. I'm a former world champion, so I made it clear that it has to be 50-50 split for me to take the fight." And then he goes on to say, "Take into consideration that I have to go all the way up to 190 pounds. Jake Paul is a big guy and weight matters. So it's a risk. There people may want to see me lose and take advantages, but he doesn't know how to box. I know I can knock him out." Then it goes on to read, "I just want to be treated fairly. What I bring to the table and my name, I have 61 fights already. And yes, I haven't looked the same in my last 2 fights, but I fought with serious injuries in my body that I will tell you about later on. I'm feeling better little by little, and if the Paul fight happens, I will be very well prepared to win. I will not lose." Yeah, Chavez hasn't looked, obviously the same. He's obviously also gained a lot of weight. Yeah, I basically read the whole article to you guys, so shout out to fightnews.com for writing it. I showed you guys this previously in the previous video I made talking about Chavez Jr. He does have he has a good record, I would say. 53 wins, 6 losses, 1 draw. That's not a bad record if you ask me. He's been in there against some big names in the sport of boxing, lost basically almost all of them. He had success early on back when he was fighting at 160 against the likes of Andy Lee. That was I would say that's probably his best win in his career, Andy Lee. He's also been in there against Canelo. I think every boxing fan knows who he is. I think the Jake Paul fans don't really know who he is. That's why I'm going over him again. But anyway, it would definitely make for a big fight. Chavez Jr. talks about weight. Chavez Jr. freaking weighs 184 in his last fight. 184. And Jake Paul weighed what? 190. So there isn't really much of a weight difference. I don't know what Chavez Jr. is talking about. Well, actually, I don't know how much he weighed in the David Zagata fight, but in the Anderson Silva fight, he weighed 184. And he's been struggling to make weight. So, in my opinion, the weight should be no problem for Chavez Jr. He's a big boy now. Chavez Jr. is a big boy. He's a big guy. And yeah, I think the weight should be no problem because I don't even think Chavez Jr. can make 175 if he tries. And he talks about how it should be a 50-50 split. I mean, Chavez Jr. has a big name. A lot of people still follow him. A lot of people are still willing to pay to see him fight. But, he's not that popular as he used to. So a 50-50 split, I don't know. That's asking a little bit too much if you ask me. And for them to offer him $1 to $3 million, that's money he will probably never see fighting somebody else other than Jake Paul right now. So, in my opinion, he should try to take the fight, man. Just take the fight. I mean, you're going against a YouTuber. See, I don't understand all these quote unquote fighters and boxers who are demanding all this money when they can't make that type of money fighting somebody else right now. Like Chavez Jr., he's not gonna see $1 to $3 million against anybody right now. No promoter out there is gonna offer him that much money right now. Jake Paul's willing to offer him that much money, and Jake Paul's a fucking YouTuber. What's the hesitation here? Should be easy work. That should be his mindset. Should be easy work. But no, he's actually saying it's actually a risk. So Chavez Jr. knows that he might actually lose this fight. And I can't blame him, man, because he might actually lose this fight, man. A lot of people are saying that he will quit again in this fight. And who knows, he might. I mean, Chavez Jr. he just doesn't have it, man. He ain't built like his dad. By the way, if you don't know who his dad is, go check him out. Because I'm sure a lot of Jake Paul fans don't know who his dad is. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see what will happen. I'll keep you guys updated on it. Subscribe if you haven't yet, please. Hit that like button if you haven't yet, please. And like always, have a great day. Alright, thanks.